Welcome back to another inspiring episode of Stories Sustain Us, where we explore the incredible journeys and impactful stories of those dedicated to sustainability. I'm your host, Stephen Schauer, and today we have a special guest whose path has been as dynamic as it is inspiring. Joining us today is Sarah Tober. Sarah's journey has been filled with fascinating twists and turns, taking her through diverse fields like public relations, golf, historic preservation, and small business. All along the way, she's not only built an impressive portfolio, but also achieved significant legislative wins, such as promoting dark skies and scenic byways, which highlight the essential balance between economic benefits and environmental preservation. In this episode, Sarah shares the power of storytelling and the importance of finding common ground, especially in bipartisan work. Her experiences emphasize starting small and building on those successes to achieve larger goals. We'll hear about her efforts to balance sustainability with economic profitability and her vision for a more representative and collaborative political system. Let me tell you a bit more about Sarah, and then we'll jump into the interview. Sarah Tober has built a career in entrepreneurship, communications, and advocacy in a wide array of industries, including small business, sustainable building, community development, and environmental stewardship. Achieving an MBA at the University of Texas accelerated Sarah's growth as a leader and solidified her prowess to make systemic changes in equity, equality, and resource access. Her work has centered around building community resilience, and Sarah is currently addressing the housing crisis in La Plata County, which is in southwest Colorado. Additionally, Sarah helped the Durango Dark Sky effort as a mentor through Dark Sky Colorado and the Colorado Tourism Office, working with Visit Durango and the City of Durango to achieve International Dark Sky Place certification. In her previous role as president of a statewide nonprofit in Texas, Sarah focused on educating the public, strengthening partnerships, and city, county, and statewide advocacy. She was successful in her advocacy work as evidenced through her efforts to create the 1 Million Trees Across Texas initiative and by getting two important bipartisan bills passed in the Texas legislature, which we're going to talk about in the interview ahead. Coming from a long line of farmers, ranchers, and gardeners accounts for Sarah's passion in horticulture and led her to become a master gardener. Living life outdoors has created a deep appreciation for adventuring, and whenever Sarah has a free weekend, she can be found mountain biking, hiking, skiing, sailing, camping, or homesteading on nearly 4 acres near the Florida River in Colorado. Sarah resides in Durango with her husband Bobby, son Wyland, dogs Fiona Apple and Henley, cat Callisto, and their micro farm of chickens, ducks, and turkeys. I've known Sarah for over 20 years, and I can say with firsthand experience, Sarah is an incredibly talented professional and a genuinely wonderful human being. So get ready to be inspired and motivated by Sarah Tober's incredible journey. Let's dive into an episode filled with insights, passion, and a roadmap to making a difference here on Stories Sustain Us, where we are inspiring action through the power of storytelling. All right, Sarah, welcome to Stories Sustain Us. Thank you for joining me today. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me, Stephen. I'm doing great this morning. How are you?
And I'm great too. Kind of on a similar timeline, where I'm an hour behind you. You're in Colorado. Where are you these days?
I'm in Durango, Colorado.
Right on. So I was thinking about it before the interview, and as I was kind of just getting, doing a little bit of research to make sure I had some thoughts for you when we're talking, that it's been 21, 22 years since we worked on the same team long ago. Yeah,
we go way back.
It seems like on one hand, like it wasn't that long ago, and on the other hand, it seems like that was a long time ago. It's just kind of, I was having a hard time wrapping my mind around it. So
yeah, I was a different person back then.
Me too. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's great to see you and catch up, and you've had a lot going on in the last 20 years or so, but let's start the conversation going back even further. Tell the audience a little bit about who you are and where you grew up and what your life was like as a kid, and how you got to to Durango, Colorado. So what's your personal story, Sarah?
Yeah, my journey has not been a straight line for sure. I've got some twists and turns in there, but I grew up in the hill country of Texas, and I grew up looking at the stars in the Milky Way with my dad.
What
And
part of the
I
hill country, for those who don't know
Yeah,
what that means?
north of San Antonio. So north of San Antonio. So in the Bernie area, Burr
Yeah, right
County
on.
is technically
Yeah,
on the Guadalupe River. So I spent a lot of my childhood outdoors. I was homeschooled for the first until fourth grade, and then I went to a private Christian school. And then I skipped a grade, and then I ended up in public school at the very end. So I got to do all the things and have all of the anxieties from it, but it was a fun journey of education. And then I went to college in San Antonio, UTSA,
yeah.
and I met my husband there, and um, he really helped me to learn about sustainability because he was an architect major,
Hmm.
and so I got to learn about design sustainability through him, books like Cradle to Cradle and concepts like that. And so, our first house had some of that sustainability intertwined with it. We did, bamboo wood floors, and we poured concrete countertops with recycled glass aggregate and things like that. So my journey in sustainability really started with him and in college.
Right on.
So
So going back into your siblings, what was you say the kind of outdoors life growing up in the hill country, and for those who don't know, the Guadalupe River, in the hill country. It's a beautiful area, Texas. It really is a lovely place of from my perspective. But
yeah,
yeah,
it
so what
was.
what was growing up like?
Yeah, I mean, the world was small, and it was small, and like Casey Musgrave said, it was flat, but
Yeah.
it was beautiful. And I grew up with two sisters, and we had similar experiences as well. And Yeah, and it's funny, we all ended up having boys too. Growing up with the two sisters, we didn't know what we were getting into with children, but yeah, we we I was very religious. I grew up very religious,
Yeah.
very conservative Christian, and again in college, just started kind of opening my mind to the world not being so flat, and to
Yeah.
there being all kinds of folks in it, and just understanding the need to do what I can to make an impact, so that the generations after us can enjoy this world too.
Yeah. Right on. Right on.
So,
So you're in college. What are you studying? What's
what
your kind of journey like there educationally?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what led me to working with you. I majored in public relations and I minored in business. And after college, I went on to, um, I had a stint in golf, of all things, for a year. And then I ended up,
What does that mean? You were playing golf, or
I
you
was,
were,
I was
or you
not.
were kind of like doing PR for golf? What does that mean? You had a stint in golf?
Yeah, I was working with the Valero Texas Open, and then
Oh,
I
right
was
on.
working
Yeah.
with like the First Tee in San Antonio, and
Yeah.
that program, and then all of the amateur golf tournaments. So yeah, I was working for a golf organization, a nonprofit that was focused on all of that.
Yeah.
So I did
First
that.
Tee is like a youth program,
It
if I remember
is.
correctly. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And somewhere in there, I joined the if I can remember it, the state canyon state natural area. Is that or government canyon
Government
state
Canyon.
natural area?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
I
big
joined
state
them.
park outside of San Antonio.
Yes, yeah. And so I was on their friends group, and helping them to do PR. And then I ended up at KGB Texas, where I met you, where I worked with you for a couple of years. And I stayed in PR for a couple of more years after that. And then I needed more. And so I ended up at the Texas Historical Commission, of all places.
Yeah.
But I got to work in some of the tour guides that were created, some of the tourism guides. And my most interesting project there was the African American History in Texas project, where I took on a tourism guide that was just, it was not complete enough. It needed more breadth than just the paper document. We needed space to tell all the stories. So we actually did a website too, an interactive website. And I wasn't the most ideal person to lead that project, but I made sure to include a number of folks that did represent African Americans in Texas, Black Texans, of all types, and make sure that their voices were heard. And so then after
this is up in Austin. You moved from San Antonio to Austin at that point when you got to the Texas Historical Commission. Yeah,
that's right. And I ended up in Austin for 15 years. The majority of my adulthood has been spent there. Yeah. And I went on to work. I ended up having my own neighborhood grocery store, Sarah's Texas Pantry.
I didn't know that. I knew everything about this story up until this point. So what? You got a grocery store?
Yeah. This kind of love for sustainability, fell into my love for the local food systems and slow food systems, and going to the farmers market in Austin and then to the farmers market in Hutto where I lived. And we had a 1920s arts and crafts style house that we were restoring downtown Hutto. And I had, been visiting all over the state for the Historic Commission and seen all these cute little small grocery stores all over in Main Street America, if you will. Yeah. So I wanted to have the same because we didn't have a grocery store there. And I wanted to have all Texas sourced products. Yeah. And so I had, almost 1,200 square feet downtown. And I had everything sourced from Texas, everything from the dog and cat food to the bread, the cheese, the meats, the salsas, the vegetables. I mean, you name it. It was from local farmers, food producers, ranchers.
Right on.
So it was an amazing part of the journey. It was around 2010. So the effects of the recession were still being felt. So I was a little bit naive and optimistic maybe, but
entrepreneurs have to be that, at least the optimistic part.
They do. Yeah, exactly. So after a couple of years, I ended up having to shutter it, sold off parts of it, but and then we ended up moving into Austin proper. And through that part, I learned so much, running my own store and being a part of that local food ecosystem. And it was an incredible experience. But moving into Austin was its own fun experience too. I got to relive another part of my youth, especially before having a kid. And just at the same time, I worked for a student housing developer for a little stint. And then I went on to work for small business as in advocacy at the Capitol. So I spent a decade in advocacy at the state Capitol. I was not a lobbyist. I was never a quote unquote lobbyist.
Yeah, never registered as that. Yeah.
Exactly. But I did a lot of grassroots advocacy. So communications, education, outreach. And so for a few years, I spent it for small business, which I obviously had that experience of. And then I got my MBA from UT, and very, very proud Longhorn now.
Yeah, hook 'em. Got my master's from UT also.
That's right. That's right. And then I went on because I wanted to be in leadership. I knew I wanted to be in leadership, and I knew I didn't need my MBA to be in leadership. But I wanted to be the best version of a leader I could be. And I felt like that was a part of it.
Yeah.
So, after I graduated in 2018, that's when I had my son Wylan too. more life-changing events. And then I went to work as an executive director for a statewide nonprofit that was focused on the visual environment. And they primarily focused on minimizing, mitigating billboards, and especially digital billboards. But I kind of expanded that to preservation of dark skies, and some work in that area. And that's when I really got hooked on Dark Sky International and the work that is being done throughout the country and throughout the world to mitigate light pollution so that children can see the stars at night and can see and experience the Milky Way and all of its vast, reverence. So
you had a couple of good legislative wins during that period, if I recall correctly. Yeah. What were those? What were those wins that you got at the Capitol?
Yeah, I'm still very proud of that work. It was Senate Bill 941, and that was in the regular session of 2021. And so that was carried by Senator Don Buckingham at the time, who went on to become a land commissioner. And that Senate Bill 941 allowed for us to join the National Scenic Byway Program, which we were the last state to join the National Scenic Byway Program, even though Lady Bird Johnson was the one who started the Scenic Byway Program.
Texas is slow on some things sometimes.
Yeah, that billboard lobby is not to be messed with, I will tell you. I still think I must have caught them sleeping at the wheel. I'm not sure what happened, but we got that passed, and we had already had 30 stretches of highway that were protected, but we didn't call them scenic byways because of the billboard industry, fighting against having that program in the state. Because once you have that established, then people start learning about the beauty that can be had along the roads, along those highways, and then they want to protect it or preserve it, or even maybe plant trees and gardens, which is all of Lady Bird.
Wildflowers like Lady Bird wanted.
Exactly. Like her vision was. And it made sense, her and Lyndon were driving back and forth from DC to Texas. So they were taking those road trips and seeing firsthand the blight of billboards, but also the potential beauty when highways are planted and utilized for natural landscapes. So we had that win, and now there's a scenic byway. It's so exciting to go onto TxDOT's website and see that there's a scenic byway program, and that these stretches of road are being protected, and that communities are getting involved and creating, there's the tourism aspect of it too, and creating like tourism maps and interactive maps in their communities around scenic byways. And that was the big, that was my big proponent of it, is the economic development aspect of the scenic byway program. And it does bring funding to your state. It brings funding to these communities. It allows for tourism to be right there alongside preservation and sustainable design. So that was one bill. And then the other bill I got through was Senate Bill 1090, also carried by Senator Dawn Buckingham. And, she went on to be the land commissioner of the state of Texas. So it does go hand in hand, the work that we did in that session together. And Senate Bill 1090 it allows communities to pursue dark sky certification. The construction industry had precluded communities from feeling like they could have their own lighting ordinances and regulations in the session before. So this was an industry agreed upon bill, which they're a little bit complicated to navigate. And it requires a lot of patience and a lot of listening to the other party, and really coming to a compromise that can work for everybody. Because I was working with, Dark Sky Texas. I was working with Dark Sky International. I was working with the construction industry and lobby. And then I was working with my own organization and my own lobbyist, also working with the legislature. And then communities all throughout the state. So I was having to hear what each community was experiencing with this, and their concerns about possible litigation around if they did try to pursue a dark sky certification.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of the work that we did there too, because sometimes you get in sustainability and in preservation, you get folks who are really, really into it, and they can't see the forest through the trees, right?
Sure.
So some of the folks with Dark Sky Texas were like, this doesn't go far enough. This doesn't, and I'm going like,
Yep.
you gotta make strides. Like,
Yeah.
if communities can't become dark sky certified, then what are we doing here?
Right.
So I'm glad we did, because Bee Caves got an international award this last year for their dark sky preservation and ordinances. So
And that's a little
through
community outside of Austin. For those who aren't familiar with what Bee Caves is, it's a small suburban, almost rural, but suburban community outside of Austin.
yeah. So it was once I got through that session and those bills, I mean, and we were still at the second phase of COVID, so I'm having to get COVID tests every time I go into the Capitol, and it was a whole other layer of adversity, if you will,
difficulty. Sure.
and I had a lot of issues with the board of my nonprofit that I was working with. They were doing things that were not legal, and they were not listening to me. And so, I ended up, despite all of that, getting 2 bills through that I am very proud of to this date, and that will have a ripple effect on generations to come. And, the fight is not easy for these kinds of things.
No, and I just want to commend you and congratulate you again, because it's not, for those who might not be familiar with Texas politics or getting those types of bills through at the state level in Texas, those are major wins, Sarah, from my years of experience down there as well. And so really congratulations. And we were looking at, I was working for a river organization at the time, and there was a scenic rivers program, national program. We didn't even need to get legislation passed in Texas. It was already this federal program. We just had to decide, was there stretches of the river that we wanted to include or seek inclusion into this national scenic rivers program. And after investigating it and pushing for it, we had to back off of that, because to become part of this federal scenic rivers program, it involved getting the National Parks Service involved and some other federal organizations involved, and just the pushback of, well, we don't want federal regulatory agencies over seeing it. And it wasn't really anything like that, but just the stigma in some of those discussions down there, and the difficulties to move some of these ideas into reality. It's a real thing. And so congratulations to you. And something else that you touched on that I think is real important is, it sounds to me like the way you communicated this to the legislators and the way that you tried to move it through the system is having multiple messages that are true. You had your messages to the dark sky audience and the scenic byways audience, that this is about aesthetics and beauty and environmental protection and all of that. But to the legislators who are going on to become land commissioners, those folks are right of center in Texas, and going to those folks with messages of, this is about economics. This is about how we're going to actually generate more revenues for communities. And so I think that tells a story of kind of what this podcast is about, is that stories matter. It's how you tell somebody a story will move them into action. Because I'm sure if you went to the legislators with this big environmental message of how green and wonderful and protective this is going to be, and it's going to put certain regulatory things on property owners and everything, that's dead in the water, but going to tell these stories about the economic benefits that these programs will have, you move the needle. You got people to listen to you. So it is an absolute example of the power of storytelling, and it's just something you really absolutely should be proud of.
Thank you. Yeah, that data around it, there was so much that spoke to it. I mean, like, with the dark skies, for instance, something like 80% of kids who grow up in urban centers will not see the Milky Way, much less a star or two,
Right.
So really letting some of that data tell the story as well. Yeah, I ran, economic models on what it could mean for us to bring in federal dollars that, we were just passing that those federal dollars were just passing us by.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to make our buy-in into the tax system any less or anything like that.
Right.
We were passing on free money that the federal government was giving out for this kind of program.
Yeah.
And
Well, money that Texas taxpayers are putting into the system, they're not going to get back. Right.
correct, exactly. And so there was that argument, and the fact that it can help beautify a community, that can, lead to tourism. And, there are lots of people who follow these scenic byways throughout the entire US. There's a ton of retired folks who take out their RV and
Yeah.
they want to go and travel on every scenic byway in the US. And the same with dark skies now too. We're seeing this whole movement of astrotourism that hasn't been nearly as prevalent as it is now. And so, there's economic opportunities here as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it does it also help with bird migration and lightning bugs and everybody having a better night's sleep and things like that, affecting people's mental health. Sure, but that's a wonderful byproduct of this work. But you're right, that was not the story I led with in talking
Right.
to some of these folks who are right of center. Yeah, and I think it's really indicative of how much we really do have in common. And I think,
Bingo.
we talk
Yeah.
a lot about polarization in politics these days, and how, the left and the right are just at odds with each other, but we really do share more space together than we
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
And I think I really felt like these bills were a part of that too, demonstrating that we can be bipartisan, we can find common grounds again. So that was part of what motivated me at the time too,
Yeah.
finding that space. And
Yeah.
and in my work today too, I'm very bipartisan in the work that I do. And I kind of love that space. I some of the most iconic political figures have been in the middle. They have found ways to pull
Yeah.
everybody together.
The messy middle is where the real work gets done. It's
where the
easy
real
to
work.
be on the far right or far left on your soapbox,
Yes.
kind of screaming your message. But it's, to me, the real work gets done in the middle by people who are open to listen to the other side, open to share a message from the perspective of the other side that still is being truthful and connecting to your position, but speaking the language that the other side might be willing to listen to as well. So listening to the other side and speaking their language is that messy middle where the work gets done.
Yeah.
And your point too about not everybody's going to get everything they want.
Right.
You had folks, I think, from your story that wanted more, and that's great, but you got to start somewhere, as you said, and it starts with these hard conversations and getting people to open the door a little bit to the idea, and then in the future maybe that door can continue to open further, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. Another integration of my story and telling my story in this work specifically is that I was able to get a resolution passed in the county I grew up in Kendall County.
Yeah, very conservative county.
Very, very conservative county, very conservative. And we passed a resolution recognizing the significance of the dark sky and the
Right
preservation
on.
of it. And the commissioner who spoke on it, he had beautiful, eloquent words about it, very conservative, but demonstrating the need of preserving our dark skies so that generations to come can still observe those stars. I got that resolution passed as part of work in partnership with the Hill Country Alliance, who was really helping to lead this
Nice.
effort of dark skies, especially in the Hill Country.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those opportunities that I jumped on because they only needed one or two more counties to complete all of the counties that had passed resolutions. And so getting the resolution passed in my home county with my then 1-year-old son on my lap in the middle of COVID again. And the place where I got to fall in love with the stars, really. I mean, that was the space that my dad taught me about constellations. And, we both shared our love for Star Trek and things like that together.
Nice.
And then looking at the stars and just imagining if, what it would be like to explore, to be an astronaut or that kind of thing. And my father, he had passed away when my son Wylan was born. So
sorry.
it was, yeah, but it of course it was sad and tragic, but it was also this beautiful moment that I got to have there in Kendall County, where it all came together. My personal story, along with my work, along with the story of Texans being able to see those stars are supposed to be bigger and brighter in Texas. Sometimes our work can intersect with our personal life in a really harmonious moment.
Yeah, a really beautiful way.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That really was that's a lovely story. I'm sorry for the loss of your father, but how you weave that hardship and grief into this beautiful moment, years later. That's really touching to me. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And, I find that a lot of my work, is most motivated by family and by people who have touched my lives in a manner that I want to do something that impacts them or remembers, their contribution to this world. So it has further inspired me, even here in Colorado, to continue dark sky work. And I've been able to, I was able to help the Dark Sky International chapter here to become a 501c3 these last couple of years. So it's now Dark Sky Colorado, and it is the only statewide nonprofit that's really focused on preserving and protecting our dark skies. And we were able to do some really cool legislation up here a couple of years ago that started a mentorship program in collaboration with the Colorado Tourism Office. And this mentorship program allows Dark Sky Colorado to provide technical assistance to communities, parks, reserves, so that we have more dark sky places in the pipeline to become international dark sky places.
Right on.
So again, working with the legislature up here, working with Colorado Tourism Office. Now I'm working with the state parks and wildlife here, as well as we endeavor to provide them some very specific technical assistance. And we have more dark sky places in the pipeline than anywhere else. So we have almost 30, I believe, in the pipeline, in addition to the almost 20 that we have already certified. So it's a very exciting time here in Colorado to be protecting our stars. And we're going to be really focused on trying to pen down some money for these communities and parks who need to retrofit their lighting. So as they're starting to take
more aiming down lighting.
Yes, exactly. As they're taking lighting inventories and they're doing dark sky measurements, they're realizing how they can impact that light pollution that they're that their communities may be putting off currently,
Sure.
and to help businesses too. I mean, we are not wanting to regulate everybody into dark sky compliance necessarily. We're wanting to help, and
Sure. There's just better ways of doing things.
yeah,
Right. Right.
exactly. And it is more energy efficient and it is safer at night.
Right.
Actually, when you're not blinding somebody, there's this misperception of lighting being more safe at night. And in fact, you're more likely to get jumped by a burglar, if you will, because you can't see because the lights are too bright, and they're prepared for that, and you're not.
Yeah.
Um, the natural acclimation of our eyes to the dark sky is healthy on so many levels, and
Yeah.
so and it's safer. And so yeah, we're doing our best to kind of get the word out and to help support these areas that want to protect their dark skies. As you know, Colorado is growing. It is,
Yeah.
we're supposed to have another 1 million people here in the next couple of years. And so as it grows and as there's more development, we want to make sure that we're developing in a sustainable manner. And lighting is a big part of that as
Absolutely.
well.
So when did you transition to Colorado and left Austin, and I think you went from Austin to Durango, if I'm
That's correct.
So when did that transition happen, that you then started doing all this great work with dark skies in Colorado, and then moving on to what you're doing these days, also in addition to all that dark skies work?
Yeah. So in 2021, after those two bills passed, I said, it's never going to get any better in advocacy in Texas. Time to hang up my hat now.
Yeah, walk out while I'm on top. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So we actually took some time trying to figure out what our next steps were. We put our house up for rent, and we bought a travel trailer, and we were working from our travel trailer all around the state of Texas, and then staying at various parks, and then going to national parks with our son and our pug and our cat. We're all loaded in there, experiencing nature and the outdoors in a whole new way. And we were just trying to kind of take time. We'd been talking about moving to Durango. We'd talked about moving to Boulder for over a decade. We'd been following property here for over a decade. And we saw that the window was kind of closing, that people were starting to make moves after COVID, finally pursuing those dreams that they had put on hold for so long, right? So we decided in 2021, there's no better time. Let's do this. And so we moved here to Durango in December. Didn't quite make our 1 year goal of traveling in a travel trailer with a toddler and a pug and a cat. We determined it was a little more complicated than we gave ourselves credit for.
A lot going on there. Yeah.
So I left my job with the nonprofit that I had been the executive director of, and Bobby started his own company, still working with the engineering firm he had been with for the last decade. And we kind of just started all over again a little in Durango. And then I went on to get involved in the housing crisis here, specifically the workforce housing crisis here.
So low income, middle income housing.
Yeah. There's that, they have the area median income, the 80 to 120%, which is considered the missing middle. There are some nonprofits here that are focused on that 60% AMI and below. And so, just seeing workforce being pushed out of the area, young families not being able to afford a home, teachers, firefighters, you name it, are all struggling with housing here.
Forgotten middle,
And then there's this huge, commuter base here as well. There's a lot of folks who live in Farmington, New Mexico, and they travel up here for jobs to La Plata County, specifically to Durango. So I just, I think it's really important that everyone has access to housing, everyone who is working, and, they deserve to have housing where they live and work. It breaks my heart that people are, especially families, are having to do these kind of commutes and that kind of thing too. And during our during snow months and things like that. So anyways, got involved with workforce housing, specifically supporting the La Plata Economic Development Alliance. And then at the time, Mike French, who was the executive director, pulled me into more work than just housing there. And I talked him into adding childcare this year to our budget as well, because there's also that nexus between childcare and workforce housing a lot of times.
Sure.
So I knew that, we also have a childcare crisis here and a lack of early childcare specifically. And so I've been getting involved with that. And we were able to partner with the city of Durango and the Regional Housing Alliance and received a DOLA grant. That's a Department of Local Affairs. Sorry about that. Too many acronyms. And so we're really researching this issue. We did the same thing with workforce housing, where we did an strategic investment plan, which really laid out what are the issues, and then more importantly, what are the solutions? And we had like a 6-pronged approach for those solutions. And one of that was standing the Regional Housing Alliance up, which is a multi-jurisdictional housing authority. It was also preserving what we have here. I was able to get involved with the preservation of the West Side Mobile Home Park here, where the residents were able to buy their own park before it was sold to developers who would have absolutely sent them out, basically.
Yeah, moved them on and put in something that they couldn't afford to live in.
That's exactly right. And West Side is primarily Spanish-speaking community, and so 100% workforce. And it's like we have to do something to help protect folks here who wouldn't otherwise be able to do it on their own. They need community support. So getting involved with that as well. So I'm not doing traditional economic development. I'm sure you are not surprised. Not to say there's not a need for, tax incentivizations for specific industries to expand jobs here. But we really are focused on preserving what we have and trying to keep jobs, businesses here, keep our workers here, keep them housed, provide them childcare, all of those things. We're not even really in a recruitment kind of space even at this.
As far as trying to bring other industries or businesses to town, it's
legitimately, when businesses look here, they say, well, where's my workforce and where could they live?
Right.
Even the local hospital has a hard time finding housing for their doctors and things like that. So, it does have me in non-traditional economic development space, but a lot of economic development organizations here in Colorado are into this space. They are into housing. They are into childcare. They are figuring out unique solutions to keep the workforce supported and to keep businesses supported. So, I've always, in all of this work that I've done, there's been a thread of community resiliency that I've had an interest in. I do believe in I believe in the circular economy as it relates to sustainability, but I also believe in the circular economy as it relates to local capitalism and economics there too. And keeping that money flowing around your community too. So this year I was made the executive director of the La Plata Economic Development Alliance.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So I'm stepping back from my dark sky Colorado kind of, I was the first executive director of Dark Sky Colorado, which was such an honor. And I still love and believe in the work, and I'm still helping from a quieter place than I was before. But I'm actually pulling in an astrotourism highlight in our upcoming Alliance annual summit. So we have an annual leadership summit that comes up on September 19th. And we bring in speakers from all around the country, and we focus on issues that are important to our area. So one of the things is that I'm bringing in is an astrotourism one, because our Visit Durango organization, Waylon Ryan over there, he born and raised in Durango. He had his master's was focused on dark skies and specifically astrotourism. And so when he and I got connected a couple of years ago in the community and both shared our love of dark skies, well, then it was
2 peas in a pod.
Yeah, exactly. 2 peas in a pod. Then we were off to the races. So we've really focused on not only getting Durango dark sky certified, as it is in the pipeline to become dark sky certified, but also the town of Bayfield, which is 15 minutes down the road from Durango, Silverton, which is like 45 minutes down the road from Durango, Mesa Verde National Park already is a dark sky park. So we're doing this. We're focused on trying to get this whole region dark sky if we can.
Yeah. And then the tourism dollars that'll follow with that. Again, tying it back into what's good for the community, good for the environment, good for the economics. I mean, I really appreciate like your whole career journey, really looking holistically at these issues and even the mention of capitalism, right? I mean, sustainability isn't like trying, at least from my perspective, trying to do away with capitalism. It's trying to transform capitalism into something that looks more holistically at all of these different issues, not just simply shareholder bottom line and the saying that we've been doing it for several decades. It's capitalism's great, but can we make it better so that it's more holistic and benefiting more people and the environment, as well as making money for people who are in business? So
yes,
I really appreciate your job after job after job as you've pursued your career, really looking holistically at these things, that triple bottom line of planet, people, and profits, and it's not that capitalism's bad. Oh no, it's actually pretty good. We just need to make it better.
agreed.
So really appreciate your approach that you've shared with us today and all of that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we can make it work better for us. I know we can. I have, my socialist Democrat friends are like, what are you talking about? But I'm like, you got to understand, capitalism isn't all bad. And when you study it, there are some government regulations in place to ensure that the market is balanced. It's not supposed to be a free for all. It's not supposed to be supportive of only monopolies, and that kind of thing.
Right.
So, and it's funny, in grad school, I kept asking professors, can we talk about B Corps? Can we learn about that?
Yeah.
And nobody wanted to talk about it.
Nobody wanted to talk about it.
They were like, we don't really know. And I'm like, and here in Colorado, I see a number of B Corps.
Yeah, right on. Good. Can we tell everybody what a B Corp is? Just so that people might not be familiar with that. What does that mean?
Yeah.
I talked about it a couple episodes ago, or maybe last episode actually, with our sustainable finance guest. But just as a reminder for folks, what is that?
Yeah, a B Corp is a for-profit organization. It's not a nonprofit, but the measurement is not just in returns to stakeholders, but also into mission-based improvements to the environment or to a sustainable cause. So your mission and how you're delivering on your mission is just as important as the return to those stakeholders and to the business. So
more purpose-driven or impact-driven ways of making money, but actually doing something that's more holistically beneficial. And those are things that need to be, I think, more widely supported and implemented. And it's probably not surprising that the MBA program at UT wasn't a big B Corp.
I know, right?
Yeah, a couple years ago, I did a certification program with the Future of Sustainable Business at the University of Oxford, and it was very much about sustainability businesses and B Corps and all of that, everything that was part of embedded into that program, and it made me feel good. It was like, oh, there are business programs that actually do promote these things. So it's important. We need to start moving towards these purpose-driven, impact-driven businesses that make money,
Yep.
but also are doing good along the way, not just caring about that bottom line all the time.
And Patagonia is a good example of that, right? I mean,
Super example, like the
yeah.
poster child of examples for how to do that business, that business model.
And even what I also looked at it from the lens of how they treat their mothers. So women who work for Patagonia who have a child, they get a year off of work, and
Yeah,
they come back to work. They always have a job there, and they have 100% retention. They don't have that institutional knowledge loss that so many organizations do when they don't bring back those moms,
right.
or bring them back at lower levels and that kind of thing. So
Yeah, all those things matter. How you take care of your employees matter.
yes.
The regenerative business practices that you can build into your systems, so that you're regenerating the earth and the citizen society. As you're taking resources from it, you're giving more back in the process, or at least an equal give and take. But if you can get into a fully regenerative business model where your business is actually benefiting more than it's taking away, I mean, these are things we need to be more serious about as we move forward. So,
Agreed.
and you are doing it. You're doing it. And it's so great to hear about. So,
Yeah.
as we're kind of getting near the hour here, I want to give you a chance, Sarah, to plug your organization, plug the event that's coming up, give people a call to action, whatever you want to do here for a few minutes. What anybody listening to this or watching to this, what do you want them to do now that they've been inspired by your story?
Oh, okay. I would love to plug a couple of things. Well, Dark Sky, Colorado, come out here and enjoy the stars with us. And feel free to become a member of Dark Sky Colorado as well, or contribute to it. It is a tiny little organization where all of our resources are going right back out into the programming. So there's no overhead, there's no office, there's no staff. It is board run. It is. I have been contracted in the past as the first executive director, but it could use some more resources and support and love from folks. And then the other is, with the Plata Economic Development Alliance, our leadership summit is coming up. So our theme this year is the new P3, people, place, purpose. And we are tying that back to a lot of the work that the Alliance does. We talk about workforce housing, and we talk about this beautiful place we live in, and we talk about how we can best preserve our workforce in that space. When we talk about people, we're talking about workforce, we're talking about employers, we're talking about employees, and we're also talking about how they matter. And then, purpose is beyond the office, beyond the job at hand. What is really driving us and what is really bringing us together? And there's economic value in all of those three things. And we are bringing in some great speakers. We're bringing in Captain Charlie Plum. He is a POW who was a survivor, obviously, who was actually with John McCain. And
Wow.
his story is very moving, but he also talks about post-traumatic growth, which is a concept that
The other side of that.
is still fairly new. We're all pretty well versed, I feel like, at this point about trauma, about about traumatic events and how that affects us. But that post-traumatic growth is a really innovative space. And then,
and that, just for folks who might not be familiar, it is tied to the PTSD part of it, where there's the trauma side of it, but there is a growing body of evidence and studies showing that people can actually be resilient through these traumatic circumstances and have tremendous growth, even though there was a horrible circumstance that happened to them. Am I defining that kind of properly?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I think I think it's very solutions oriented again too, which I just don't, there's no shortage of crisis and issues for us to focus on, but I think solutions and having those solutions in place are equally important to focus on, if not more, for us to understand the best pathway forward. And then another speaker is Matthew Emerson. He is the CEO of Every Monday Matters, a nonprofit that is focused on really connecting people back with their purpose, and also helping to support that employee base more wholly. And then another speaker that we're having is Lucia Nell, and she is the VP at Upworthy, and she's co-authoring a book that is all about like the greatest stories from humanity that will be coming out in September. So
yeah,
cool. Plata County, we're pretty small down here, but in the Four Corners, this is one of the biggest leadership business events. We had about almost 500 attendees last year, so we anticipate around the same again. And it's there at the casino there in Ignacio, because that's the largest indoor space that we have for that many people.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Well, we'll put the information about Dark Skies Colorado and the Leadership Summit on the notes page, so folks listening to this or watching to it can get the links and support and or show up to participate. So
love that, Stephen.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, Sarah, thank you again for your time, and I end every episode the same way. These stories, they're about sustainability. As you just mentioned, there's no shortage of trauma and difficult things to talk about, and these subject matters are hard sometimes, when we're talking about, homeless issues or being able to support childcare. These are, difficult choices that people have to make and face in life, and they're not always easy to listen to or work in these spaces. So there's a lot of hard days when you're in these spaces and talking about these things, these hard things on a regular basis. So I try to end every episode not only with the call to action that you just did, but then leaving everybody with a little bit of hope, and hope, as it's kind of like clinically defined, is this idea that you can envision a better future, but you also have the personal agency to take steps to make that personal vision become a reality. So that this hope is an important. It's not a strict strategy, but it is needed in order to have that inspiration to go do the work. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions. It's kind of rapid fire. Just kind of whatever comes to your heart or your mind, just kind of spit it out. So the first question is, Sarah, what's your vision for a better future? And it can be for you personally, professionally, or for the world. What's your vision for a better future?
My vision for a better future is a more balanced political system that is representative of all the voices, not just two conflicting ideas, and one that is taking into account sustainability alongside the economic profitability of the work we're doing. And of course, I want dark skies at night for all of us to enjoy those stars and
right on.
To look up.
So I think the whole interview's kind of led to this answer, but just why do you want there to be more balanced in our political discussions and more dark skies? Why?
For my son Wyland, I'm at a point in my life where most of what I'm doing every day it is with the purpose of giving him opportunities that maybe I didn't have, to ensure that he has a better planet than what I had, than what I experienced, and he being representative of all of the children of this next generation and the generations to come. So yeah, that's my big motivator. That's my big driver every day.
That's awesome. So last question. Imagine the future that you've envisioned, this future where politics aren't so polarizing. We're actually communicating and sharing these complex ideas and looking, for solutions together as opposed to yelling at each other, and dark skies are everywhere. People can enjoy the amazing beauty of the Milky Way at night. How does that make you feel that future is now a reality.
Yeah, I mean, you painted a beautiful picture for me. So, I wouldn't ever rest on my laurels and think that all the work is done. And there's always room to do more and better, just like we talked about with capitalism. But I would certainly rest a little easier and maybe not have 2 and 3 jobs at a time. Just enjoy one at a time, maybe would be lovely.
I feel like you could take a little bit of a break.
Exactly. And they call that here, by the way, they call that the Durango Tango. Everybody has multiple jobs. So,
Nice. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, wonderful. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your story, your background, your career path. It's, I'm grateful to know you. I know we've kind of haven't, seen much of each other in the last couple of decades, but it was a pleasure working with you so long ago. And it's been just a joy to see you continue to just grow and do all these amazing things that you've been doing in your career path. And I couldn't be happier for you and your family. And I'm going to do my little parts of the puzzle. I'll do as best as I can to put those pieces in place to help your vision for a better future come to pass. So thank you for being part of this show. It really means a lot to me.
Thank you, Stephen. It means so much to be able to share this time with you. And I'm so proud of this series that you're creating here. I'm so excited for it. So thank you.
All right. Well, we'll stay in touch. Take care.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. And that brings us to the end of another insightful episode of Stories Sustain Us. A huge thank you to my incredible guest, Sarah Tober, for sharing her inspiring journey and valuable insights with us today. From her love for the stars and her work in dark sky preservation to her current role in economic development and workforce housing, Sarah has shown us the importance of protecting our environment while striving for economic growth. Her work in sustainability and advocacy, particularly Sarah's legislative wins promoting dark skies and scenic byways, showcases her dedication to both environmental preservation and economic benefits. Her emphasis on the power of storytelling, finding common ground in bipartisan efforts, and balancing sustainability with economic profitability has been truly inspiring. Sarah's reflections on the challenges and successes of her advocacy efforts remind us all of the importance of persistence and collaboration. I, for one, am in full support of Sarah's vision for a better future being a more balanced political system that is representative of all the voices. Look, I'm going to avoid the temptation here to get on my soapbox and rail against what I think are the problems with our current political system, particularly on the national level. So rather than being angry and ranting, I'll simply say that I think some of the ways we can achieve a more balanced political system that is representative of all voices is by doing away with gerrymandering and implementing an open primary system in every state for all elections. Now, how is any of this connected to sustainability, you may ask? It connects because peaceful and inclusive societies are crucial for sustainable development. To have a properly functioning government, be it here in our democracy or government in any other country, there needs to be effective, accountable, and transparent elected officials and institutions at all levels. And we need to ensure responsive, inclusive, participatory, and representative decision-making at all levels. I'll wrap this up by encouraging everyone to vote. During this 2024 election cycle, the polling I've seen shows that the climate and environment don't even make the top 5 important issues facing voters in the U.S. And look, that's okay, because if you've been following this podcast by now, you may have picked up that sustainability is a large umbrella. So issues like the economy, immigration, healthcare, jobs, civil rights, these are all sustainable issues, just like climate change. We can either address these issues in a balanced way, which would support sustainability, or not. So I encourage you to vote. Look beyond the attack ads and silly name calling and vote for the candidates you think best represents the future you want to see happen. So yeah, I'm probably pretty close to getting on that soapbox I'm trying to avoid. So let me loop back into thanking Sarah Tober one last time for an engaging and encouraging conversation about the importance of balancing sustainability and economic profitability. and the need for a more representative and collaborative political system. Clearly, I support Sarah's vision for a better future, and I hope you do too. And be sure to check out the show notes page for more information about the organizations Sarah mentioned, like Dark Sky Colorado and the La Plata Economic Development Alliance. As always, thank you, audience, for joining me today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. I appreciate the support. Next week on Stories Sustain Us, we'll be talking about a project that is near and dear to my heart. You'll learn about a true internationally recognized ecosystem restoration success story that transformed a river from a flood conveyance channel into a more natural riverine system, creating recreational opportunities, environmental benefits, and economic development. As part of this ecosystem restoration project, my guest next week is an aquatic biologist who is leading an innovative effort to reintroduce native freshwater mussels to this newly restored riverine ecosystem in the heart of one of the largest cities in the United States. If you don't know why that's such a big deal, you'll want to come back next week to learn all about it. The episode will be available on August 20th, wherever you listen to podcasts and at storiessustainus.com. It's an incredible success story, and you're not going to want to miss it. Till next time, I'm Stephen Schauer. Please take care of yourself and each other. Take care.